All right, hello everyone. Very good evening to all of you. Hope you're all doing well and welcome to the second training session of LSMUN 2025. Pratyush and Aryan are like, hi, waiting for start. Yes, we've begun. I would suggest you all to tell your friends to join in as well so that we can begin today's session and move forward with what our discussions are for today's day. We have the second half of the ROP to complete today. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to once again, much like our previous session, keep your ears open. I will share my screen, of course, with the ROP as well, so it will be easier for all of you to, to read it along with me. But more than the text that's written out there, I want you to pay attention to me because I'm going to be explaining each and every one of the, rules of procedure at large. So I am just going to open up my link over here in just a moment. Fantastic, I'm all set. And I also hope that you can see my screen as well, which I've shared with all of you. Wonderful. So, for those of you who are present in our previous session on Saturday, we had completed points 1 to 14. However, left out the formal voting, which of course I want to explain today. But what I'd like to cover today is point number 15 onwards till point number 25, which will essentially complete your rules of procedure. And then maybe tomorrow is when we can have, a doubt solving session at large. So coming to today's session, I want to begin with something called moderated caucus. All right. I want to begin with something called moderated caucus. Now, what is this moderated caucus? ये इसका क्या मतलब होता है? How does it work? What is this term used for? It's not something that we use on a daily basis as a daily language, but what do we use it for in terms of an MUN is essentially what I want to tell you about today. So moderated caucus is basically dividing the agenda. हम agenda को divide करते हैं into multiple sub agendas. You see, when we are discussing agendas like Israel Palestine crisis, or for example women's rights and reproductive rights, or for example cyber terrorism, espionage and so on, these are very vast agendas. बहुत चीज रहता है ना ये सब चीज पे बात करने में. Like it's so many different variables are there. इतने सारे चीज है जिस पे हम टच कर सकते हैं when it comes to the agendas that I have given at whole. तो what we do, हम जो करते हैं, ये जो पूरा जो आपका agenda है, whatever your topic is, we break that agenda down into subtopics. We break it down into sub agendas. Each sub agenda is discussed in format of a moderated caucus. मैं आपको एक एग्जाम्पल देता हूँ. आप स्कूल में पढ़ते हो, अलग अलग सब्जेक्ट्स पढ़ते हो, वो टेक्स्ट बुक रहता है आपका एक, है ना, फॉर एग्जाम्पल जोग्राफी और हिस्ट्री और वट एवर द टेक्स्ट बुक में भी. each textbook has multiple chapters, multiple modules. पूरा मॉड्यूल, हर एक मॉड्यूल पढ़ने के बाद ही आप मतलब टेक्स्ट बुक खत्म कर लेते हो. यू फिनिश योर सब्जेक्ट, एंड ऑफ द ईयर फाइनल एग्जाम. सिमिलरली, the discussion or the study of each module of your textbook or each module of your main agenda is done through process of moderated caucus. This is what moderated caucus means. Basically इसका क्या मतलब है? हमारा एजेंडा बहुत बड़ा है, बहुत सारा इंफॉर्मेशन है. वो एजेंडा को हमको सब टॉपिक्स में तोड़ना है. We have to break it down into sub topics and discuss each sub topic in detail. This is done through the process of moderated caucus. 60 to 70% of your time, 60 to 70% of your time in terms of discussion in your committee will go mainly in this one point. Moderated caucus and unmoderated caucus. So what is a moderated caucus? It is basically a formal discussion. It is a formal discussion on the subtopic of the main agenda. This is essentially what moderated caucus ideally means. It is a detailed discussion on the subtopic of your main agenda. ये होता है आपका मतलब moderated caucus का. So how does this whole thing work? How does this whole thing work? Say if I will take questions at a later time. All right. So keep the chat box open to questions and open to our discussions and not so much emojis, AMG edits and Prakash Kulbe. What I'd like to share with you is say let's take for example the Israel-Palestine crisis. Let's take for example the Israel-Palestine crisis. Okay. So Israel-Palestine crisis बड़ा बड़ा क्राइसिस है राइट उसका अलग अलग फैक्टर्स रहता है देयर कैन बी फैक्टर्स लाइक ह्यूमन राइट देयर कैन बी फैक्टर्स लाइक टू स्टेट थियरी देयर कैन बी फैक्टर्स लाइक humanitarian grounds or human and so on and so forth. तो नो प्रॉब्लम यार प्रकाश इतना स्ट्रेस मत लो बस कान खोल के सुनो और रिलैक्स करो. तो जैसा मैं कह रहा है इजराइल पैलेस्टीन क्राइसिस का मल्टीपल सब टॉपिक्स रहते हैं. These are the different contributing factors to this problem of Israel-Palestine. Each reason or each factor is discussed in detail through moderated caucus. ये होता है आपका mod cauc. Slang में उसको mod cauc बोलते हैं, but it means moderated caucus. So how do you initiate this? आपने पहले कमेटी में आया, आपने अटेंडेंस दिया, आपने बोला प्रेजेंट एंड वोटिंग, आपने जीएसएल का इंट्रोडक्टरी स्पीच दिया, सबको पता चला कि कौन कौन से साइड पे है, कौन से ब्लॉक पे है, who's on which side, who's for against and neutral. Then we get into the depths of the discussion. फिर हम डिस्कशन के डीप डिस्कशन में हम जाते हैं. These discussion is happening through moderated caucus. So how will you have a moderated caucus started in committee? आप start कैसे करोगे moderated caucus को? अगर आपको पहले सेशन से याद है एक डायलॉग चेयरपर्सन हमेशा बोलता रहेगा. He will continuously or she will continuously repeat one dialogue. That dialogue is what? Any points or motions on the floor. At this junction time, what will you do? You will raise your placard and you will say motion to open, as you can see on your screens in italics, which I'm highlighting for you. Motion to open a moderated caucus to discuss. Subtopic क्या रहेगा? For example, the human rights of the people affected by Israel-Palestine crisis. Total time length maximum 10 minutes. Say for example 7 minute कर लेते हैं and time per speaker 1 minute. This is what a detailed discussion on subtopic human rights associated with Israel-Palestine crisis 7 मिनट का डिस्कशन है जहाँ पे 7 लोग 1 मिनट के लिए ईच बात कर सकते हैं. सो यहाँ पे एग्जैक्टली क्या होगा? ये मॉडरेटेड कॉकस जो है डिटेल डिस्कशन है. इजराइल पैलेस्टीन क्राइसिस बहुत बड़ा क्राइसिस है. उसमें एक इम्पॉर्टेंट चीज है ह्यूमन राइट्स ऑफ पीपल हु आर अफेक्टेड, जिसका घर बार टूट गया है, जिसमें डेथ हुआ है, लॉस हुआ है, उनका ख्याल देखभाल कौन रखेगा. ये इसका डिटेल डिस्कशन अभी हम लोग स्टार्ट करने का कोशिश कर रहे हैं. नाउ जस्ट बिकॉज मैंने प्लैकार्ड रेज किया और मैंने बोला चलो ये डिस्कस कर लेते हैं, ये सब मैंडेटरी या कंपलसरी नहीं होता है. वोटिंग पे जाते हैं. आपको याद है फर्स्ट सेशन इनफॉर्मल वोटिंग मैंने बताया था. आई हैड टोल्ड यू अबाउट इनफॉर्मल वोटिंग. All the delegates in the committee will cast a vote. Do they think this subtopic is important and connect to agenda? If yes, they will vote okay, I want to discuss. If they don't think it's important, they'll say no, they don't want to discuss. अभी एक चीज आप लोग ध्यान दो. It is not mandatory just because you have voted. अगर आपने वोट किया है कि ये सब टॉपिक पे डिस्कशन होना है, इसका मतलब आपको कंपल्शन नहीं है कि आपको वो टॉपिक पे बोलना ही बोलना है. इट इज नॉट योर mandatory for you. It is not compulsory for you. But if you feel it is an important discussion, other people will be discussing it, so you can hear, and when time comes, you can even contribute if you want to. So you vote for the agenda, this moderated caucus, अगर आपको लगता है कि ये fruitful रहेगा कम्युनिटी के solution के लिए. Then chairperson will see, अगर majority लोग ने बोला हाँ ये important सब topic है, चलो discuss करते हैं, this motion will be in order. फिर जो बंदा ने, जो delegate ने, whichever delegate has said that has raised this moderated caucus or proposed this moderated caucus, they will get option. Should I speak first or should I speak last? Now here is the tip of the point. The tip of the point is आपने तो इनिशिएट किया, आपने तो प्रपोज किया है, मतलब आपके पास वो सब टॉपिक पे खूब इन्फॉर्मेशन रहेगा ही रहेगा, लेकिन आपके पास और सभी के पास जो बात करेंगे एक ही मिनट है. यू विल हैव ऑप्शन टू स्पीक फर्स्ट और लास्ट. कभी कभी क्या होता है, वी गेट वेरी एक्साइटेड तो हमें पहला बोलना है. मेरा सजेशन ये है और ये ट्रेनिंग का टिप है आपके लिए, दैट ऑलवेज स्पीक लास्ट इन मॉडरेटेड कॉकेज. क्योंकि आपके पास वो 10 चीज होगा वो पॉइंट बात करने के लिए, है ना. बट देयर विल अदर पीपल माइट हैव सेम पॉइंट लाइक यू, तो लेट द अदर पीपल स्पीक एंड देन यू रीइंफोर्स ऑन विच एवर पॉइंट दे हैव मिस्ड आउट. दिस विल बी एडवांटेज टू यू and advantage to committee and your team as well. So moderated caucus is what? Raising the placard saying motion to open moderated caucus, whatever the subtopic is, total time length maximum 10 minutes and total time per speaker maximum 1 minute. उसके बाद you will get chance to speak first or last. You can choose, chairperson will recognize and then this moderated caucus will be in order. हमारे जो Which is asked a valid question. Which has said that GSL type is a very generic common introduction है. Particular subtopic पे discussion होगा. Only about human rights you will discuss in this subtopic. Not about anything else. Not about two-state theory. Not about nuclear power. Not about USA-Israel friendship. Only and only about that subtopic will be discussed when based on क्या proposition आया है committee. This is what a moderated caucus is. You will have option to speak first or last. Smart person will speak last. Excited person will speak first. So remember, because you all are taking the trouble to attend the session, I am giving you this tip that speak last in the conference. It will help you during the conference as well in terms of winning best delegate prize. This is what your moderated caucus is. अब ये एक साइकिल होता है, जैसे आपके स्कूल में साइकिल रहता है. Yes, you have to speak about the topic on the spot. Pratyush, you have access to your internet, you have access to your data, you have access to Google, you have access to research material. तो ऐसा नहीं है आपको by heart करके एग्जाम देना है. टॉपिक है अबाउट ह्यूमन राइट्स, अबाउट पीपल अफेक्टेड बाय इजराइल पैलेस्टीन क्राइसिस. अगर आपके पास इंटरनेट नोट्स है, आप 1 मिनट के लिए आसानी से बोल सकते हो, लेकिन आपको टाइम इनफैक्ट कम पड़ता है कभी कभार. Anyhow, I will take questions at the end of the session, like we did in yesterday's session. In Saturday's session. What I want you to do now is I want you to listen what I have to say to all of you. Committee जो रहता है ना, एक साइकिल में चलता है. This cycle is called moderated caucus and unmoderated caucus. Moderated caucus में हम मेन जो एजेंडा है उसको तोड़ते हैं सब एजेंडाज में और इन डिटेल ईच सब एजेंडा को डिस्कस करते हैं. अनमॉडरेटेड कॉकस में हम हर एक सब टॉपिक पे हम लोग सोल्यूशन ढूंढते हैं. व्हाट इज अनमॉडरेटेड कॉकस? अनमॉडरेटेड कॉकस इज अ इनफॉर्मल सेशन. मॉडरेट कॉकस फॉर्मल सेशन है सब टॉपिक पे. अनमॉडरेटेड कॉकस इज अ इनफॉर्मल सेशन where you can engage with other delegates, you can negotiate with other delegates. आप मेरे लिए वोट करो, आपका क्या पॉइंट है, चलो ये सब टॉपिक हम लोग सोल्यूशन ढूंढते हैं. This is what your unmoderated caucus is, where you can get up from your seats, you can engage with your team members, you can engage with the opposition team members, and basically try to ideate and find innovative solution during this time of unmoderated caucus. This is how 60% of your conference is going to go between moderated and unmoderated caucus. Again, I will explain. Moderated caucus is a detailed discussion on subtopic. Unmoderated caucus is an informal session where ideally we negotiate with each other, lobby with each other, और जो भी हमने सब टॉपिक डिस्कस किया है ना, जो भी सब टॉपिक डिस्कस किया है ना मॉडरेटेड कॉकस में, उसका हल ढूंढते हैं, उनका सोल्यूशन ढूंढ लेते हैं. This is what essentially your moderated caucus and unmoderated caucus is. How do you start unmoderated caucus? Excuse me. How do you start unmoderated caucus? जैसा आपने moderated caucus में हमने placard raise किया, बोला motion to open. Similarly, unmoderated caucus का same situation है, motion to open an unmoderated caucus. Purpose क्या है? Purpose कुछ भी हो सकता है. To discuss solution for subtopic 1, or to lobby, negotiate to find a consensus or equal solution for everyone. So you can have maximum 10 minutes plus 5 minutes in case आपको पूरा मतलब लंबा solution बनाना है आपको. So unmoderated caucus, again you raise your placard, पूरा चीज वापस vote पे जाएगा, because like I said, independently you cannot do everything, but together we are the ones who will be able to do everything. So it will go to informal vote. Chairperson देखेगा, has everybody seen and everybody how do you say, taken into consideration कि हाँ ये unmoderated caucus important चीज़ है, accordingly वो pass हो जाएगा. This is what your unmoderated caucus essentially is. Again, I'm repeating point number 15 and point number 16. This is where 60% of your committee sessions are going to go in. साइकिल होता है. आप ही सोचो ना, अब फर्स्ट चैप्टर पढ़ोगे, फर्स्ट चैप्टर के बाद उसका सोल्यूशन निकालोगे, फिर सेकंड चैप्टर जाओगे, फिर सेकंड चैप्टर का सोल्यूशन ढूंढोगे. लाइक दैट यू विल कंप्लीट फुल टेक्स्ट बुक. नो, सिमिलरली आपका पूरा एजेंडा इसी मेथड से कंप्लीट हो जाएगा. Now, during the conference, like how you have motion for moderated caucus and unmoderated caucus, there are other motions as well. I will come to points as well, but I'll first finish motions. Chairperson क्या बोलते हैं regularly? Motion, any points or motions on the floor. This is what a standard statement is. वो लोग parrot की तरह same चीज आपको repeat कर देंगे. So one of the other types of motion like moderated caucus and unmoderated caucus is something called challenge. This is a very fun motion. Okay, it's a very debating motion. It is spices up the committee and makes everybody alive. It is basically, I would say in our lingo, like an Arnab Goswami debate. Okay, Arnab Goswami debate जैसा होता है, where even though we are 35-40 countries being represented in committee, two countries can have debate with each other only. For example, Israel Palestine सिर्फ एक दोनों से debate कर सकते हैं on any topic of their choice, any subtopic of their choice. It is a one-on-one delegate where two people or two students come in front of entire committee और दोनों debate करते हैं एक दूसरे के साथ, like Arnab Goswami, where there is no rules apart from behaving, not saying personal remark, not misusing information, things like that. Else it is an open floor, open debate. आप और हम इसमें जैसा आप अपने सिबलिंग के साथ झगड़ते हो ना, how somebody says which is the best team in IPL, is it Mumbai Indians or is it RCB, झगड़ा होता है ना, we debate with each other ना why it is better. Same way it can be on any subtopic and it is known as a challenge. ये कैसे पास होता है? आप प्लैकार्ड रेज करोगे, बोलोगे मोशन टू चैलेंज अ डेलीगेट ऑफ सो एंड सो कंट्री, जो भी आपका टॉपिक है, वॉट एवर योर टॉपिक इज that you want to challenge them about, say for example Iran interfering with Israel Palestine crisis. ये एक टॉपिक हो सकता है जहाँ पे यूएसए और ईरान एक दूसरे से डिबेट डिस्कशन कर सकते हैं. सो दिस कैन बी वन एग्जाम्पल ऑफ अ चैलेंज एज वेल. ये मोशन है तो ऑफ कोर्स जस्ट बिकॉज यूएसए हैज चैलेंज्ड ईरान, sorry, just because Israel has challenged Iran, that does not mean because दोनों को डिबेट करना है कि डिबेट होना चाहिए. Again, like everything else, ये भी informal voting में जाता है. This is something which goes into informal voting again. If committee thinks कि हाँ these two people should debate with each other, should have one-on-one debate with each other, then this motion passes, else it fails. This is what your motion for challenge, essentially motion to challenge essentially is. I will take all questions after I complete explaining everything. The next type of motion is called a question answer session. A question answer session. What is a question answer session? Suppose there is a delegate in the committee. एक student है committee में, बहुत सारे information share कर रहा है, बहुत सारा data, statistics जो भी है बहुत share कर रहा है, और सभी के पास they want to ask them questions based on what they have spoken, based on what their actions are. For example, ईरान ने taking same example, ईरान ने rocket डाला Israel पे, they had shot the rockets on Israel. So the whole world will have questions for Iran. No, Iran, why did you do this? Where did you procure this thing from? Was the nuclear what do you call that armaments used? Why did you attack Israel without prior permission of Security Council? Vagera, vagera. People can have questions. People can have questions for you. You can have other questions for other person. So suppose आपको ऐसे एक delegate मिलेगा committee में, जो maybe as a country they have done wrong or they have shared lot of information and you feel कि यार इसको सवाल पूछना है मुझे, that why did you do this or how did you do this or what, जो भी questions है आपके पास, it will naturally happen. When I am explaining to you, it may not seem very obvious, but generally when you have 30 people talking in the committee, naturally people have questions for one another. So to answer these questions, we have created one motion. This is basically motion to move into question answer session with a delegate of so and so country, जो भी country का नाम है. Total time, say for example 5 minutes. Total number of questions 5 questions. इसमें क्या होता है, अगर मैं ईरान हूँ और पूरा कमेटी मुझे सवाल पूछना है ऑन वॉट एवर आई हैव डन, वॉट एवर आई एम अबाउट टू डू, व्हाट माय स्टैंसेस, जो भी सवाल है, देन somebody can raise placards, say motion to open, move into question answer session with delegate of Iran. Total time 5 minutes. Total number of questions 5 questions. Basically 1 minute per question. और कोई दूसरा ने प्रपोज किया है, just because somebody else has proposed and me as Iran may not want to answer also. लेकिन किसी ने प्रपोज किया है, कमिटी के सामने आया है, वो वोटिंग पे जाएगा. अगेन बेस्ड ऑन सिंपल मेजोरिटी ये मोशन पास या फेल हो जाएगा. पास हो जाएगा, लाइक मॉडरेटेड कॉकस का मोशन है, लाइक चैलेंज का मोशन है, ये भी एक्टिव हो जाएगा, जहाँ पे आप जिसने भी प्रपोज किया है, यू कैन चूज टू आस्क फर्स्ट और लास्ट क्वेश्चन, and other four people, considering our example, will be able to ask me as delegate of Iran question on whatever they think regarding to agenda. This is what your question answer session essentially is. इसी तरह there is something called 1 for 1 against and 2 versus 2. 2 for versus 2 against. So this is a more civilized form of challenge. It is challenge में क्या होता है ना, हम दूसरे से we don't have to wait for other person to finish. Like अर्नब गोस्वामी जैसा genuinely वैसा debate होता है. However, in 1 for 1 against 2 for 2 against, each person gets 30 seconds. 30 सेकेंड मिलते हैं सबको. First I will speak from my side, फिर दूसरा बंदा अपने एंड से बोलेगा, फिर मेरा टीम मेंबर दूसरा वाला है जो सेशन में, he will say for some time, then again the third person, say like that 30 seconds or 45 seconds depending on type of motion. So when there are multiple people involved in a debate, say for example, again let's take Palestine crisis only as example. ईरान ने बॉम्ब डाला, रॉकेट डाला, तो हु आर द पीपल इन्वॉल्व? वन इज ईरान इन्वॉल्व, वन इज इजराइल इन्वॉल्व, क्योंकि उसने उस पर अटैक किया है. फिर पैलेस्टीन इन्वॉल्व भी हो जाएगा, ओके, बिकॉज पैलेस्टीन एंड ईरान आर फ्रेंड्स. वैसा अगर पैलेस्टीन और ईरान का दोस्त आ रहे साथ में, तो इसराइल भी यूएसए को भी ले आ सकते हैं ना उसके दोस्त बना के, एंड फोर ऑफ देम कैन गेट इनटू अ 1 for 1 और 2 versus 2 अगेंस्ट अ मोशन एज सच. अगेन अगर ये मोशन किसी ने प्रपोज किया है, then at same point of time it will go through informal voting. Committee ने बोला हाँ ये मोशन होना चाहिए, this discussion should happen between these 2 or 4 countries, फिर ये मोशन पास हो जाता है. Now remember one thing guys, if the committee votes for any motion and you are involved, whether you want to answer, you don't want to answer, whether you want to be part of debate, you don't want to be part of debate, if committee says आपको करना है तो आपको करना है. This is the thing that you must keep tab on. That is why what I've told you from start, in general speakers, just find out who your friends are, find out who your allies are, make sure you'll all vote together and make your team strong. This is what your 1 for 1 against is. Like that, then there is something called joint statement. Joint statement is essentially giving a statement together, where two countries are showcasing their friendship, showcasing their alliance on a global stage. It is called joint statement. This is not a very heavy debatable thing, but it just shows the strong relationship between maybe Israel and USA or between Palestine and Iran as such in front of entire committee कि देखो भाई लोग, हम लोग we are good tight, good buddies, good friends, and we are going to work together, we are going to fight together, and we are going to come to solution together. So when 2 or more countries come together to give a joint statement, for example neutral countries, say for example Thailand and Myanmar, they are not involved so much in Israel-Palestine crisis. However, they must be also having something to say. They might want to say something on humanitarian grounds. So Thailand, Myanmar can issue joint statement saying, we as the representatives of Thailand, Myanmar, we do condemn, the battles being fought, the death and destructions being happened, and we want to work towards finding peaceful solution for these countries. And this is what our two countries have come together for. सो व्हेन टू कंट्रीज दोस्त बन के साथ में भाई भाई बहन बहन भाई बहन आके शेयर कर लेते हैं, सो दिस इज व्हाट इज नोन एज जॉइंट स्टेटमेंट. Next up, you have something called presidential statement. What is presidential statement? Presidential statement is something that I will come to again at a later time. So what we have completed for now, we've completed motions. What are the different types of motions? One is motion of moderated caucus, which is detailed discussion on subtopic. Second type of motion is unmoderated caucus, which is basically lobbying, negotiating, and finding solutions. Third type of motion is challenge, which is basically one-on-one Arnab Goswami debate. Next type of motion is question answer session, when committee wants to ask a particular delegate questions. And next type of motion is one for one against, two versus two against, like challenge, but more civilized, can be done in groups one versus one or two versus two. And finally, there is motion for joint statement, two countries coming together to share the same point in front of entire committee. These are what your different types of motions essentially are. Now let's go to points. Now let's go to points. What are points? Points are just like motions only, बस नाम ही अलग है. Let me just zoom into this. See, so basically, any kind of issues you're facing, this is like a more like an individual based thing. Yeah, आपके ऊपर है. It's not an engaging thing like motions. For example, one type of point is point of personal privilege. मैंने आपको क्या कहा, जनरल जब कमेटी स्टार्ट होएगा हर 10-15 मिनट चेयरपर्सन एक लाइन रिपीट करेगा, आर देयर एनी पॉइंट्स और मोशंस ऑन द फ्लोर. मोशंस में आपको एक्सप्लेन किया, अभी मैं आपको पॉइंट्स एक्सप्लेन कर देता हूँ. फर्स्ट टाइप ऑफ पॉइंट इज पॉइंट ऑफ पर्सनल प्रिविलेज. What is point of personal privilege? It is essentially any kind of personal difficulty you're facing, any kind of personal issue you're facing. आपको वॉशरूम जाना है, टीचर इज स्टैंडिंग आउटसाइड आस्किंग फॉर यू, योर स्कूल टीचर, क्लास टीचर, और कोई भी पर्सनल चीज आपका है, आपको थोड़ा 2 मिनट आपको एक्सक्यूज करने हैं अपने आप को, you use point of personal privilege. How, like, you raise your hand and say, ma'am, can I go washroom in class? Same way, we don't say, can I go to washroom? Point of personal privilege. यार मेरा पर्सनल का काम है, मैं 2 मिनट में रिटर्न आ जाता हूँ. This does not require any voting. Points don't require any voting. These are just points, individual based. तो आप सिर्फ उनको बताना है कि point of personal privilege मुझे सुनाई नहीं दे रहा है, मुझे वॉशरूम जाना है, टीचर मैम मेरा बुला रही है बाहर 1 मिनट के लिए. That is what point of personal privilege essentially is. Then you have something called point of information. What is point of information? Point of information is a very interesting points. अगर आप मेरी बात ध्यान से सुन रहे हो, आपको यहाँ पे बहुत पॉइंट्स मिल सकता है टू विन बेस्ट डेलीगेट. व्हाट इज पॉइंट ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन? अगर आपको लगता है कि कोई दूसरा डेलीगेट, दूसरा कंट्री, सम अदर कंट्रीज डेलीगेट हैज गिवन द फॉल्स इंफॉर्मेशन, हैज गिवन इनएक्यूरेट इंफॉर्मेशन, झूठ बोला है, और अगर आपको पता है वो झूठ बोला है, तो आप ये पॉइंट यूज कर सकते हो. सपोज आई एम किम जॉन उन, डेलीगेट ऑफ नॉर्थ कोरिया, एंड मैं बोलता हूँ मेरी कंट्री नॉर्थ कोरिया में न्यूक्लियर बॉम्ब है ही नहीं, लेकिन आप यूएसए होके या चाइना होके या रशिया होके आपको पता है कि ब्रो मेरे पास बॉम्ब है न्यूक्लियर के, then you can raise your black card and you can say, point of information, delegate of North Korea has said that he does not have nuclear bombs in his country. However, this statement is false and it is in fact a proven statement. Proof है कि delegate of North Korea is not giving the right information, is hiding the fact. Remember one thing, if you are going to accuse another delegate कि आपने इंफॉर्मेशन गलत दिया, फॉल्स दिया, झूठ बोला है, यू मस्ट ऑल्सो हैव प्रूफ. आपको प्रूफ भी चाहिए रहेगा, बिना प्रूफ का कुछ मतलब नहीं है. सो यू कैन नॉट से कि नहीं ये झूठ है, मुझे पता है. इट्स नॉट काउंटेड. यू हैव टू शो द एविडेंस. हाउ, व्हाट इज दिस एविडेंस? एनी क्रेडिबल सोर्स ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन. क्रेडिबल सोर्स मतलब इंस्टाग्राम, फेसबुक नहीं. क्रेडिबल सोर्स मीन्स न्यूज, media house, something like that is considered this. Amnesty International, BBC, CNN, Al Jazeera, these are considered credible. Routers, these are considered credible source of information. तो आप क्या करोगे? आप ब्लैक कार्ड रेज करोगे, बोलोगे पॉइंट ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन, डेलीगेट ऑफ नॉर्थ कोरिया has given the false information, और आप प्रूफ दिखा दोगे. This will give you plus points or minus points. अगर आपने किसी का ये पकड़ दिया that this is given false information, you will get plus points. However, if you accuse someone and it turns out to be false, then you will get the negative points. तो ये सोच समझ के यूज करना है. It's like make or break. तो ये वाला पॉइंट आप सोच समझ के यूज करना. Next point is point of order. Again here you can get brownie points and you can win points from your chairperson in this as well. How? जैसा आपका point of information है which basically tells you about other delegate giving false information, इसी तरह point of order is where if somebody uses wrong rules of procedure, किसी ने गलत प्रोसीजर यूज किया है, एंड यू नो योर प्रोसीजर वेल, यू नो द टेक्निकल प्रोसीजर वेल, आप प्लैकार्ड रख के कह सकते हो पॉइंट ऑफ ऑर्डर, दिस डेलीगेट हैज यूज्ड रॉन्ग प्रोसीजर, he has used point number 6 but actually you should have used point number 12. If you know your rules of procedure well, if you understood your rules of procedure well, कोई दूसरा गलत कर रहा है प्रोसीजर के साथ, तो यूजिंग रॉन्ग प्रोसीजर, यू अंडरस्टैंड कि नहीं ये प्रोसीजर से अलग है, then you can raise placards, say point of order and point that out. Then you will get plus points. However, if you are also wrong, then like point of information, आपको भी negative points मिल सकते हैं. This is your third type of point. And finally, your fourth type of point is called point of parliamentary inquiry. दिस इज द बेस्ट पॉइंट फॉर फर्स्ट टाइमर्स. अगर आप पहली बार आ रहे हो कॉन्फ्रेंस में, अगर आप कुछ भी चीज पे कंफ्यूज हो इन टर्म्स ऑफ प्रोसीजर व्हाट आई एम एक्सप्लेनिंग टू ओवर आवर 3 सेशंस, इवन व्हेन यू आर इन कॉन्फ्रेंस, इवन व्हेन यू आर इन कमिटी, जब आप कॉन्फ्रेंस में रहोगे, कमिटी में रहोगे, अगर आपको थोड़ा सा भी डाउट है कि क्या मैं रूल्स का ये वाला पॉइंट यूज करूं या वो वाला पॉइंट यूज करूं, टेंशन मत लो. रेज योर प्लैकार्ड, से पॉइंट ऑफ पार्लियामेंट्री इंक्वायरी. चेयरपर्सन आपको देखेगा, बोलेगा ओके व्हाट इज योर क्वेश्चन डेलीगेट, तो आप बता दो कि मुझे कमिटी में ये चीज करना है, लेकिन मैं कंफ्यूज हूँ कौन सा पॉइंट यूज करना है. सो दिस विल सेव यू फ्रॉम समबडी गिविंग पॉइंट ऑफ ऑर्डर अगेंस्ट यू. This is what point of parliamentary essentially is. I will take all questions. I have it recorded in chat box. Don't worry, all questions I will answer. So these, like how you have motions, these are points. Points में voting का जरूरत नहीं है. Only recognition of chairperson. It's like raising hand and telling ma'am something. फर्स्ट पॉइंट ऑफ पर्सनल प्रिविलेज, एनी पर्सनल इशू, सुनाई नहीं दे रहा है, वॉशरूम जाना है, जो भी है. पॉइंट ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन, हाईलाइटिंग फैक्चुअल इनएक्यूरेसी, highlighting false information given by the delegate. Point of order, any procedural inaccuracy. Point of parliamentary inquiry, any kind of, how do you say, uh, confusion you have in terms of using procedure, you can use point of parliamentary inquiry. So with this, we've covered your motions as well as your points. Then we have something called presidential statement. Then we have something called presidential statement. ये presidential statement exactly क्या है? It is when, unlike just being delegate of country, you assume yourself to be president of that country. माना कि अगर आप delegate of India हो, तो मेनली जयशंकर जी जाते हैं, है ना, आवर मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एक्सटर्नल अफेयर्स मिनिस्टर या उसका रिप्रेजेंटेटिव जाता है यूएन में बात करने के लिए, इंगेजमेंट करने के लिए, अगर आप वीडियोस वगैरह देखोगे. हाउएवर इन सीरियस सिचुएशन, मेजर सिचुएशन में प्रेसिडेंट या प्राइम मिनिस्टर खुद जाते हैं, हेड ऑफ द कंट्री गोज. फॉर एग्जांपल रशिया यूक्रेन के बीच क्राइसिस में वो ज़ेलेंस्की प्रेसिडेंट है, वो रेगुलरली जाता है यूएन पे, वो डिप्लोमेट तो नहीं भेजता है, करेक्ट. सो ऑन अ सीरियस मैटर you can use something called presidential statement. Now, unlike being delegates of different country, if you are president or prime minister of a country, अगर आप president या prime minister country का रहोगे, then of course you are more superior to everybody else in committee. That is why at any time of your choice, you can just raise placard, say presidential statement, और जो आपको बोलना है बोल सकते हो. But remember two things very carefully in this. Very carefully in this. You can use this maximum of twice in the committee. Secondly, अगर आप प्रेसिडेंट बन के आपको प्रेसिडेंशियल स्टेटमेंट पूरा कमेटी को इंटरप्ट करना है, तो फिर कमेटी ऑल्सो हैज चांस टू आस्क यू क्वेश्चंस कि आप प्रेसिडेंट होके आपने ये बोला, मेरा ये सवाल है. So questions can be asked by the committee out here. You can only do this twice in the conference. Remember. Now, it should be very important when you use it. For example, मैं आपको देता हूँ, अभी आपके घर के बाहर रोड है, वो रोड पे आप डेली आप पार करते हो, स्कूल जाते हो, ट्यूशन जाते हो, कहीं ना कहीं घूमने जाते हो. वो रोड में एक बहुत बड़ा सा खड्डा है, हर गाड़ी उसमें जा रहा है, सस्पेंशन खराब हो रहा है, दिक्कत हो रहा है सबको. तो आप प्राइम मिनिस्टर मोदी जी को नहीं बोलोगे ना, कॉल करके नहीं बोलोगे ना कि मोदी जी हमारे घर के बाहर जो रास्ता है उसमें इतना बड़ा खड्डा है, नहीं बोलोगे ना. आप अपना लोकल कॉन्ट्रैक्टर को बोलोगे, लोकल एमपी को बोलोगे, क्योंकि उसका जिम्मेदारी लोकल एमपी का है. सिमिलरली इन प्रेसिडेंशियल स्टेटमेंट, इफ इट इज नॉट अ नेशनल लेवल थिंग, इंटरनेशनल लेवल इशू, मेजर इशू नहीं है, तो फिर ये इसको नहीं इस्तेमाल करने का। क्योंकि अगर मोदी जी आके आपके बाहर के रोड के जो भी खड्डे है उसके ऊपर अटेंशन देगा, तो प्राइम मिनिस्टर बनने का क्या फायदा? You will get negative points. If you use presidential statement, if it is not something of that value so as to suit office of a president or prime minister, you will get negative markings. Also, like I said, अगर आपको प्रेसिडेंट बन के सबको बोलना है बीच में, तो सब लोग आपको सवाल भी पूछ सकते हैं. So you will be required to answer questions back to everybody as well also. This is what your presidential statement is. Again, here you can get plus points and minus points. So be careful using these statements. This is what your presidential statement essentially is. Now we will come to paperwork. Now we will come to paperwork. I am seeing the questions. I will answer all the questions in the chat box shortly. First type of, there are two types of paperwork. One type of paperwork is working paper. Second type of paperwork is known as resolution. तो वर्किंग पेपर एग्जैक्टली क्या है? व्हाट इज दिस वर्किंग पेपर? वर्किंग पेपर is the solution to moderated caucus. Is the solution to moderated caucus. Let me run this by you properly. बस सुन लो, कॉम्प्लेक्स नहीं है. You have taken your full agenda. You have taken your full agenda and you have broken down that agenda into multiple subtopic. मेन एजेंडा को सब एजेंडा में डिवाइड किया है. पूरा ज्योग्राफी टेक्स्ट बुक अलग अलग मॉड्यूल्स में. आपने फर्स्ट चैप्टर, फर्स्ट मॉड्यूल, फर्स्ट सब टॉपिक, फर्स्ट मॉडरेटेड कॉकस में डिस्कस किया. फिर उसके बाद आपने अनमॉडरेटेड कॉकस किया. वो सब टॉपिक जिसने आपने डिटेल में डिस्कस किया उसका सुलझाव ढूंढने के लिए. ये सुलझाव को कहते हैं वर्किंग पेपर. दिस सोल्यूशन इज नोन एज वर्किंग पेपर, where it is a solution on subtopic. In your geography textbook, you study full chapter 1. After you turn the page after chapter 1 conclusion, you will see questions are there and you are required to give answers. So this is the solution to your subtopic. The answers to your first chapter. The answers and solutions to your first subtopic, which is made when in unmoderated caucus to make the solution. ये solution exactly क्या है? कुछ complex नहीं है. It is not something complex. It is very simple. It is basically having your sub agenda. ये जो आप दिख रहे हैं यहाँ पे, this is basically your moderated caucus जो आपका topic सब topic 1 है. For example, humanitarian aid for people affected in Israel Palestine. ये आएगा आपका सब agenda जो आपने moderated caucus में in detail discuss किया. फिर आप यहाँ पे point 1, point 2, point 3, point 5 अपने शब्दों में ह्यूमैनिटेरियन का जो भी प्रॉब्लम है उसका सोल्यूशन आप लोग साथ में, नॉट अलोन, फुल कमिटी टुगेदर will create 5-6 points of solution for this humanitarian problem in Israel-Palestine crisis. ये हो गया आपका working paper. So what have we done? We have done what? We have made a working paper. What is working paper? It is a solution to subtopic of main agenda. कैसे बनाते हैं? सिंपली जो आपका मॉडरेटेड कॉकस है वही आपका सब टॉपिक है. यू राइट डाउन द सब टॉपिक एंड यू राइट डाउन पॉइंट 2, पॉइंट 3, पॉइंट 4 कि यार बहुत से डैमेज हो गया है तो वी शुड सेंड मेडिकल स्टाफ टू इजराइल पैलेस्टीन. खेत खराब हो गए तो वी नीड टू सेंड फूड एंड ग्रेन्स टू इजराइल पैलेस्टीन टू हेल्प द पीपल इन वॉर डैमेज जोन. बच्चे लोग का पढ़ाई रुक गई है तो वी शुड सेंड ग्रुप ऑफ इंटरनेशनल टीचर एंड स्टेशनरी एंड नोटबुक्स टू हेल्प द अपकमिंग जनरेशन कंटिन्यू एजुकेशन. जो भी आपका सोल्यूशन है, और ये सोल्यूशन आप अकेले नहीं ढूंढोगे, सब साथ में आपने इन डिटेल सब टॉपिक डिस्कस किया है. अभी इन डिटेल सब साथ में अनमोडरेटेड कॉकस में आप वर्किंग पेपर करोगे. दिस इज व्हाट योर वर्किंग पेपर एसेंशियली इज. इसी तरह आपका पूरा कॉन्फ्रेंस ये साइकिल में जाएगा. आपका मॉडरेटेड कॉकस रहेगा, फिर आपका अनमॉडरेटेड कॉकस रहेगा. अनमॉडरेटेड कॉकस में आप क्या बनाओगे? आप बनाओगे वर्किंग पेपर. हाउ विल यू मेक वर्किंग पेपर? सब लोग साथ में एक एक पॉइंट निकाल के एज अ टीम वी विल contribute to finding solution. In this way, we will discuss subtopic 1, create working paper 1, then we'll go to chapter 2 or subtopic 2, then make working paper 2, then we'll go to chapter 3 or subtopic 3 and get working paper 3. इसी तरह हम पूरे टेक्स्ट बुक के हर एक चैप्टर पढ़ के उनका सोल्यूशन निकलेंगे. अभी आप फिफ्थ चैप्टर पे कर पहुंच गए, विच इज फाइनल चैप्टर इन टेक्स्ट बुक, और फाइनल चैप्टर इन टेक्स्ट बुक का सोल्यूशन है भी आपने ढूंढ गया एज वर्किंग पेपर 5. हो गया आपका पूरा टेक्स्ट बुक. Full subject is complete because you have discussed all subtopic and you receive solution also of all subtopic. अब ये सारे वर्किंग पेपर्स को एक साथ में कंपाइल करोगे. If you collect all working papers and you combine together, you have what is known as resolution. क्योंकि आपका पूरा एजेंडा कवर हो गया है, वर्किंग पेपर 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. इसी तरह आपका रेजोल्यूशन इसी तरह बनते हैं. सो इन वर्किंग पेपर, टू पास वर्किंग पेपर, दैट सोल्यूशन, देयर इज इनफॉर्मल वोटिंग, सिंपल मेजॉरिटी. हाउएवर, द ओनली टाइम इफ यू आर देयर इन फर्स्ट सेशन देयर इज फॉर्मल वोटिंग इज ड्यूरिंग रेजोल्यूशन. तो ये फॉर्मल वोटिंग एग्जैक्टली क्या है? व्हाट इज दिस फॉर्मल वोटिंग दैट वी हैड स्किप्ड आउट ऑन फर्स्ट डे? Formal voting, unlike informal voting, which is simple majority, is requiring to have 2/3 majority, which basically means 30 में से 21 people need to agree. और formal voting का 3 rounds होते हैं. There should be 3 rounds. First round में आपको 6 option मिलेंगे. Agree means हाँ, I am voting for the topic. I am voting for resolution कि हाँ ये solution सही है, ये होना चाहिए दुनिया में. डिसएग्री कि नो, दिस इज नॉट द करेक्ट सोल्यूशन और ये नहीं होना चाहिए दुनिया में. अग्री विद राइट्स, इसका मतलब ये है कि हाँ, ये मानता हूँ ये सोल्यूशन होना चाहिए, लेकिन मुझे सबको समझाना है कि वाई मेरा जो देश है, वाई माई कंट्री इज वोटिंग फॉर रेजोल्यूशन. डिसएग्री विद राइट्स मीन्स नो, ये सोल्यूशन नहीं होना चाहिए, लेकिन मुझे कमिटी को समझाना है कि हमारे देश और हमने ये रेजोल्यूशन के लिए मना क्यों किया है. फिर रहता है आपका पास. जो भी न्यूट्रल कंट्रीज कभी कभी कंफ्यूज होंगे, थाईलैंड, म्यांमार जैसे कंफ्यूज रहेंगे कि यार इजराइल पैलेस्टीन में मैं कौन सा साइड पे जाऊँ, तो वो लोग अभी तक कंफ्यूज है, तो वो लोग पास कर सकते हैं. एंड फाइनली इज एब्सटेन, जहाँ पे मुझे ये रेजोल्यूशन पे वोट ही नहीं करना है. ये होता है आपका राउंड 1. अग्री विद राइट्स, डिसएग्री विद राइट्स, पास और एब्सटेन. राउंड 2, राउंड टू में क्या होगा? जो भी लोग, जो भी delegates, whichever delegates said agree with rights and disagree with rights, each one of them will get 1 minute to explain their choices, to defend their choices. समझाने के लिए कि मैंने वोट क्यों किया है या वोट नेगेटिव क्यों दिया है. ये इंपॉर्टेंट क्यों है? क्योंकि जो लोग पास है वो लोग कंफ्यूज है. अगर जिसने अग्री विद राइट्स कन्विंस किया पास वाला को, तो अग्री को एक और वोट मिल जाएगा. जिसने डिसएग्री विद राइट्स ने कन्विंस किया पास वाले बंदे को, तो डिसएग्री को एक और एक्स्ट्रा वोट मिल जाएगा. बराबर. सो एसेंशियली राउंड 2 इज ऑल अबाउट द पीपल हु हैव अग्रीड और डिसएग्रीड विद राइट्स टू गिव द एक्सप्लेनेशन फॉर 1 मिनट उन्होंने क्यों वोट किया, विद ऑब्जेक्टिव ऑफ कन्विंसिंग पीपल हु हैव पास्ड. फाइनली राउंड 3, जो लोग ने पास किया है, they will be left with 3 option. Either they will vote yes, agree for agenda कि हाँ चलो ये solution कर लेते हैं, disagree मतलब नहीं ये solution नहीं करते, या abstain मुझे ये solution पे vote ही नहीं करते. If your resolution passes, your committee is successful and you have come to solution to the agenda that you've given. If not, then committee has failed. Committee fail मतलब exam जैसा fail नहीं है. It's just that we were not able to find solution, which is very normal. Some of best committees I have seen have not been able to pass a resolution because the discussion is so much, because the thought process is so different. And this is what your formal voting essentially is. Finally, in your resolution, suppose instead of voting and disagreeing with full or cancelling full resolution, थोड़े बहुत माइनर चेंजेस करना है. कि मतलब 90% रेजोल्यूशन सोल्यूशन तो ठीक ही है, मुझे बस एक ये पॉइंटर में दिक्कत है, उसको थोड़ा बदलना है. देन यू, इंस्टेड ऑफ वोटिंग नो फॉर फुल रेजोल्यूशन, you can go in for amendment. Amendment is of two types: consensual, non-consensual. Consensual amendment is agreeable by all members कि हाँ भाई थोड़ा स्पेलिंग मिस्टेक हो जाएगा या फॉर्मेटिंग एरर हो जाएगा या ग्रामेटिकल एरर है which does not change meaning or solution but just corrects it grammatically or spelling wise. That is called consensual amendment. इसमें कोई वोटिंग का जरूरत नहीं क्योंकि वो बेसिक नॉर्मल क्लरिकल करेक्शन बोल सकते हैं. नॉन कंसेंशुअल अमेंडमेंट ये है जहाँ पे लोगों को ये पॉइंट बदलने में दिक्कत हो रहा है वेयर पीपल आर फेसिंग प्रॉब्लम and looking at it from opposing angles that this is the important point we need to debate about it. So you can debate about each point in resolution also through this thing called non-consensual amendment. उस पे हम लोग वोटिंग करेंगे. इनफॉर्मल वोटिंग हो जाएगा नॉन कंसेंशुअल अमेंडमेंट पे. अकॉर्डिंगली स्टेटमेंट इन सोल्यूशन विल बी चेंज्ड और रिमेन सेम. This is how you go about in terms of forming resolution. Now, before coming to questions, let me just quickly in 1 minute revise everything that I've told you. Today we studied about first different types of motions which all require simple voting. One was moderated caucus, detailed discussion on a subtopic. Then we discuss unmoderated caucus, which basically what we do is we basically try to find solutions, working papers, resolutions, and logging. It's an informal session. Generally, it is followed after moderated caucus. Then we have different points to heat up committee. Challenge, which is basically one-on-one Arnab Goswami type debate. Then we have motion of question answer session, where you can ask questions to delegates in the committee. Then we have one for one against two versus two, where essentially you all can, what do you say, raise motions amongst each other. Basically, have a challenge with each other, but in a more simple way. And instead of one on one, can be two and two. Then you have a joint statement where two countries showcase friendship and showcase the entire relation they have and same point of view. Like that, we have points. Points are of four types. This does not require voting. Point of personal privilege, कोई भी personal issue. Point of information, any false information, factual inaccuracy given by other delegate. Point of order, किसी ने गलत rules of procedure इस्तेमाल किया है. Point of parliamentary inquiry, to help you avoid using wrong rules of procedure. Then we did about presidential statement, where you assume yourself to be president of country in that chair and address the entire committee. And finally, we came to the solutions. One is your working paper, solution to each moderated caucus or subtopic, and finally resolution, which is bus compilation, putting all working paper together. आपका resolution बन गया. Then we did formal voting, which is basically voting on the final solution, which is known as resolution. And just because 95% of resolution is proper according to you and one point you have problem with, you can go in for non-consensual amendment and debate about it one point so that you don't fail resolution correct and try to get that one point on your side. And consensual amendment, which is any grammatical error. This is essentially what your rules of procedure for LSMUN is. Coming to questions in the chat box. What will we speak in that 1 minute GSL type? This which I've answered. Pratyush Raj, we have to speak about a topic on the spot. Pratyush, yes, this is a topic you will all choose together. I will not choose. You will only choose. Committee full will choose together. If committee is all saying कि हाँ हमको डिस्कस करना है, मतलब बात तो करनी है, information है बात करने के लिए. Palak Saini asks, a topic of challenge has to be related to the given agenda, or it can be related to any part of the agenda, but it should be related to your agenda, Palak. Mana's question is, for example, if a delegate has a proposed a subtopic about majority, so will I get more? Yeah, of course. If you are taking initiative in committee, if you are taking lead to open motions, to do moderated caucus, to break for unmoderated caucus, and you are leading committee using your leadership skill, you will of course get more points in the conference at large. Web of Bhamori asks, sir, if someone asks question, is it necessary to answer it or voting happens? First voting will happen. If people want to ask me question, मुझे तो जवाब नहीं देना है, लेकिन पूरा कमिटी ने वोट किया है कि मुझे जवाब देना होगा, then I have to give answer. It is not independent decision. Sub handling is not used. Handing is not used in MUN, Priyal. Pratik Shah's what will happen on the very first day of LSMUN. Prakash, the first day of MUN is going to be the best day of LSMUN. There's a big surprise for all of you, and you're all going to love it. And I'm not going to say anything further than that. The home workouter. So I don't want to participate. Please, can I get a refund? Home worker, sorry, we have already placed all the orders with the catering, with the administration for your conference kits, your printing or certificate placards 3 days before the conference. Unfortunately, we won't be able to help you with that. Sir, is it compulsory to wear traditional dress? Somewhat if someone doesn't have sukuna, no problem. You can come in your school uniform in case you don't have a particular dress code. Good Sahaj, at what time we have to reach by on the very first day and what time will we depart? You need to reach in the morning between 9 and 10 o'clock, and by around 12:30 you will depart from there. Sir, who is Arnab Goswami? He is India's greatest debater. On day one we have to bring our GSL or not? Not necessary, not on day one. Sir, what about WhatsApp groups or lobbying? Netik, we have sent all the details of the WhatsApp group to your registered email ID or to your school or to your delegation WhatsApp group in one of these three places. So please have a look at your email which you registered with. Pratyush Raj, unfortunately, my school is not coming on the first day. I would urge you to come on the first day because first day we're going to be having lobbying, we're going to be having engagements, and it is the first day of official conference as well. So it is compulsory to be out there, Pratyush. So make sure that you try to make yourself over there on the first day of the conference. Sir, can we use personal pronouns? Yeah, I don't see there any problem using personal pronouns. Sir, what are the timings for all the days? Final conference itinerary has been shared, SciTech, to your email, web of your email. Please have a look at it. It will be shared with you. No, the home workouter, we want you to engage in the committee. Okay, we want you to engage. No point sitting silent. आपके बात करो आपकी उम्र के दोस्त लोग हैं. It's not some outsiders that are going to be out there. All right. That being said, I have noticed I have answered all the questions for our session today. What I want you all to do is I want you to go through all 25 points of the rules of procedure. When we meet tomorrow, I am not going to explain any procedure myself. I am only going to be looking at chat box and only answering the questions that you have, nothing apart from that. Before we close, can you explain joint statement again? Jivika, yes, Jivika, I can. Jivika, joint statement is when two countries come together as friends, as alliances, as similar thought process, and share a statement together saying, yes, we both our countries agree with ABC XYZ thing. Palak Saini sir just asking like if a particular school's delegates are majority, then their views will prevail and most of the motions will be according to them. No, Palak Saini, just because there is a majority in school, that does not mean the countries being represented by them are on the same team. The countries are different. The same school cut two students might be worst enemies in this thing will be arguing with each other only. So there's no such rule or thought process like that. Animesh asks, are authors and signatories there in working paper too? Just the author is there. Author basically means आपका country का नाम निकलो बस. Signatory is not required in the working paper. And authors have to present. Yes, authors have to prevent. You can have to present the working paper. Otherwise, chairperson can also present the working paper on the smart board or on the computers out there. So that is dependent on how your committee is flowing. That being said, thanks for all joining in for today's wonderful session. Hope you all have taken the few tips that I have given you all for today. We will meet tomorrow, same time at 5 p.m. And tomorrow will be only and only a doubt solving session where anything in terms of this 25 points you have a doubt on, you can ask me. Have a lovely day and see you all tomorrow at 5 p.m. Bye bye.